Okay, let's learn now something a little about vessels. So I told you there's like three main vessels, okay? Actually, more like five, but for simplicity purposes, let's just think of them as three of them right now, okay? The artery, the capillary, and the vein. Actually, here's all of them. The artery, the arteriole, the capillary, and the venule, and the vein, okay? And remember that blood travels from the artery to the arteriole, through the capillaries, okay, through the venules, to the vein, back to the heart. Okay, arterioles and veins are going to be smaller. So our arteriole are smaller arteries for our purposes. Venules are going to be smaller veins for our purposes. Okay, so what this picture is showing you is that kind of the basic, very basic actually, missing a lot of information, but just gives you an idea of what vessels are made of. Okay, and let's just focus right now on the arteries and the veins, because they're going to have a very similar composition. Both of them are going to have, and this is kind of what I want you to understand, what I want you to know for the test, okay? What I want you to understand for the exam. Let's talk about the artery really quick. It has an endothelium, okay? This is the endothelium is going to be a layer of cells that is very thin, okay? What it's going to do is it's going to line the vessel, okay? It has contact with blood. Okay, it has contact with the blood. All right. So the endothelium is going to have a layer of cells. So we're going to have something called a basal lamina. Okay. But I'm most interested in just knowing what the function of it is. The endothelium is going to be lining the vessels. It's going to line the vessel, and it's going to have contact with the blood. What do we call this pore or this area? Let me redo that again. What do we call the area here where you see the arrow, where you see this arrow, okay? You see blood coming through here. The space here, the spacing here inside of the vessel is going to be the lumen. Okay? The lumen, that's where the blood is traveling, okay? So the endothelium is going to be covering, lining the vessel, lining the lumen, okay? It's going to have contact with the blood, okay? It has another layer. The artery has another layer made of smooth muscle. And by the way, just in case you ever take a higher level class, there's actually different names. Okay, actually the innermost layer is usually called tunica intima. This would be the tunica media, then the tunica externa. Okay, and smooth muscle, for example, is the main component of the tunica media. Endothelium is going to be the main. The basal lamina and the endothelium is going to be the main parts of the tunica intima. But I'm not going to talk about tunics. Okay, I'm not going to talk about tunics. I just want to point out kind of the main components of your vessels. If you go to a higher level class, then you'll hear those words, okay? And know that these things, endothelium, smooth muscle, connective tissue, they're part of those tunicas, okay? So the innermost layer, let's just say, is made of endothelium. The second layer is going to be made of smooth muscle. And when you hear muscle, you're going to be thinking about, guess what? Contraction, okay? And relaxation. And I'm saying this because there's a very important concept here, okay? And there's a couple of words I will ask you to learn in the next slide. This is going to be called, the two words are vasoconstriction and vasodilation. And what causes vasoconstriction? What causes vasodilation? The muscle, okay? It's able to contract and is able to relax, or the vessels can relax, okay? So what does vasoconstriction look like? And again, this is due to the smooth muscle. This is what vasoconstriction looks like. If this is going to be the artery, okay? I'm going to put another artery here, just so you know. Same artery, okay, same size, and okay, like I said, this is going to be the lumen, and this is the normal artery, okay? During vasoconstriction, what's going to happen is this contraction of the blood vessel. Smooth muscle contracts, okay? And it makes the lumen, guess what? very, very narrow, okay? Which in a way, this causes an increase in blood pressure. What about vasodilation? What do you think it looks like? Did you say the opposite? Absolutely. Okay, relaxation. What happens to the lumen? Gets bigger. Okay, and usually blood pressure decreases. But again, this vasodilation, this vasoconstriction, the main reason why it happens, and usually happens in arterioles as well, mostly, or just smaller arteries, it has to do with because of the smooth muscle, okay, because there's a lot of smooth muscle. And then finally, it has connective tissue. And what is connective tissue for? Mainly for protection. Okay, mainly for protection. So for example, protection of imagine the aorta, it has a lot of pressure there, right? Because you're pumping, your heart is pumping blood at such high pressure, then this aorta is withstanding it, right? So imagine if it weren't protected, if there weren't any connective tissue. By the way, most of this connective tissue is made of collagen. Okay, collagen. That's the main type of connective tissue. Okay, which is basically for protection. Okay, it protects it. Okay, it protects the vessel from rupturing, for example. Okay. Just checking collagen here. Collagen. Yeah, sorry about that. I think this is pretty poorly spelled. Let me redo this one more time. Sorry about that, guys. I'm getting pretty sloppy. Maybe I'll do this. Maybe I'll do this. I'm gonna write the same thing, guys. I just a little near. Okay, made of something called collagen. There you go. Connective tissue. Collagen is protein, and it's gonna be mainly for what? What did we say? For protection. Okay, for protection. There's also other proteins around there. There's other types of tissues. There's also, for example, elastin, which allows the vessels to expand, that kind of stuff. Okay, but the main idea, or the main points, the main components are what you see on in your slide. Okay, and like I said, if you go to a higher level class, you will see that there is way more than that. Okay, there is way more than that. There's more stuff. There's, for example, the elastin, which is a protein that allows vessels to stretch. And also, there's also going to be, you see, I just told you what an artery looks like and what it has, right? Endothelium, smooth muscle, connective tissue. But then there's a lot of different types of arteries, depending how far from your heart you are, how far the arteries from the heart. Some arteries are going to be so close, or the arterioles are not going to be so close to the heart, and they're going to be able to do more like vasodilation and vasoconstriction, right? And now the aorta, for example, is probably going to have way more connective tissue than other arteries around your toes, because they have to withstand more pressure. Okay, so there's going to be, even within the arteries, there's going to be different composition depending how far away you are from the heart. Okay, and what the function of that artery is. Okay. And that's it. That's with the artery. Now, with the vein, really quick, we'll expand this a little bit later. But as you can see, it's the same thing. It also has endothelium. It also has smooth muscle. It also has connective tissue. But if you see something here, if you compare the vein with the artery, you'll see that the vein, okay, the parts of the vein are way thinner, right? The endothelium, well, the endothelium is the same size, but the smooth muscle is kind of thinner, right? Connective tissue is really thinner. And the reason why is because, and you will see in a little bit, the pressure is very low in the veins and the venules. Okay, it's the blood pressure is really low. Okay, I'll show you a picture later on. Well, so because it's very low, you really don't need to have a lot of smooth muscle or a lot of connective tissue, because it's not going to rupture. Okay, one thing you should really notice from the veins, however, is that the veins are going to have a larger lumen. Okay, you have a larger lumen. And we'll talk about the valves in a second, okay? We'll talk about that in another slide. Okay, so what are the arteries made of? Those three things. Make sure you know what the main functions of these three layers. The veins, the same thing. I'm gonna focus mostly on the test, mostly on the artery, because the only difference really, the main difference between the endothelium, smooth muscle, connective tissue from the arteries and the veins is that the veins is usually kind of thinner, okay? Now the capillaries are only made of endothelium and basolamina. Okay, that's all they're made of. That's all they have. Let me just say, let me make that really clear. Okay, and again, the endothelium is a one cell. It's a layer of one cell. Okay, so one cell thick. One cell, one thick cell layer. I can't put these words in together again anymore. One cell thick. There we go. There you go. One cell thick layer. There you go. Sorry, guys, I had to. It's like a puzzle. Why? Because it's made of one cell. It's a layer, right? But it's made one cell thick. That's it. It's just one cell thick. So it has an endothelium. Yes, endothelium, and it has a basolamina. Okay, that's all I have. That's all they have. That's all that the capillaries have. Okay, they don't have any smooth muscle. They don't have any connective tissue, and that should make sense. Why? Because what is the role of a capillary? What do capillaries do? Exchange. Okay, exchange stuff. So here you can see red blood cells in a capillary. This is a capillary. Okay, you see how it's very thin, and only one red blood cell can go through. But you see how the capillary is very thin. Only has to, because he has allowed for things to go out and things to go in. So the layer has to be really thin, so things can diffuse from the blood to the tissues and the tissues to the blood. Does that make sense? Okay, regulation of blood pressure, like I told you before. Vasoconstriction and vasodilation. Vasoconstriction is the contraction of smooth muscle in arterial walls, increases blood pressure. Vasodilation is the relaxation of smooth muscle in the arterial walls, causing a decrease in blood pressure. I don't have to draw this again because I drew it in my previous slide. But make sure you know what it looks like, okay? I may make you draw it in a test. Okay, what is this saying? A couple of things, okay? Actually, several things. Well, first of all, okay, as you can see here, let me explain you how this works. You see here aorta, arteries, arterioles, capillaries, venules, veins, and vena cava. So pretty much this is the x-axis, okay? And this x-axis is gonna match every single one of these graphs and drawing. What does this mean? It means this: the aorta is here. Well, this is the aorta. Okay, and these are going to be the arteries, and these are going to be the arterioles, and these are going to be the capillaries. Okay, and these are going to be the venules, these are going to be the veins, and this is going to be the vena cava. Okay, and here same thing. Okay, aorta, this belongs to the 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 arteries, this belongs to the arteries, which belongs to the arteries, this belongs to the arterioles, arterioles, etc. Okay, in terms of cross-sectional area, what it means is this: which vessels have the highest cross-sectional area? Let's just try to read this graph. It's very easy. Aorta has very small cross-sectional area, but then when you go to the capillaries, look what happens in the capillaries. That cross-sectional area increases drastically. So what is this graph telling us? It's telling us that the aorta and the major vessels kind of have a small cross-sectional area compared to all of the arterioles, compared to all of the capillaries. Okay, in the venules, the arterioles, the capillaries, those are going to have high cross-sectional areas, because if you include all of them together, you make a humongous venule, or humongous arterial, or humongous capillary. Okay, that's why. And then eventually the veins and the vena cava, they have low cross-sectional or small cross-sectional areas. Velocity, important. The velocity of the blood. where is blood flowing fastest? Well, the aorta. And that should make sense. Why? Because remember the aorta, where's it getting? So the blood, the heart, boom, is pressure, is adding a lot of pressure. The blood in the ventricle is going to be from the heart. It's going to come with so much pressure that it's going to go so fast. Okay, so fast out of the aorta. Then they still travel pretty fast in the arteries, but as it gets further and further and further away from the heart, what happens to the velocity? And whoosh, until it crashes, right? So blood flow is still fast in the arteries, but in the arterioles, you see a huge drop. In the capillaries, you see it goes very, very slow. And this should make sense, okay? Should make sense because, well, first of all, the cross-sectional area is highest in the capillaries. But if that's too difficult to understand, just think about like this. Like I was telling you before in my other video about you going to McDonald's. Okay, you're gonna go to McDonald's. You're gonna be driving on Cicero Avenue. You're probably going at 40. If you are my student, you're probably going at 55 because you're trying to make it early to my class. And you're going fast, okay? But you have to go to McDonald's because you wanna get number 5, right? I still don't know what it is, but number 5. And once you are there, once you get to McDonald's, so you're driving a 55 miles, 45 miles an hour, you get to McDonald's, what do? Well, you gotta slow down. You gotta slow down to go through the drive-through because there you have to do what? The exchange, right? You order, you have to slow down, you order, you have to slow down, you have to pay, you really have to slow down for that. And then you have to slow down again to pretty much stop to receive your food. Does that make sense? So you see how we're going very, very slow in the drive-through? We have to because there's where exchange happens. But then you're done buying your stuff, you know, and then you actually leave and you take Cicero again and you're able to go at 45 miles an hour again. Okay, well, not so much in terms of the veins, but you get the point. Okay, exchange requires slow pace, so that's why it makes sense that the blood flows the slowest in the capillaries. Then it picks up a little bit. It picks up a little bit as it goes to the venules, to the veins, and then the vena cava. Not as fast as in the aorta, but still it picks up a little bit of the pace. Now the pressure, okay? The pressure again has to do with velocity because imagine you're pressing something, you're pressing, I don't know, just squishing something, you know, and things are going to be coming out pretty fast, right? Because of the pressure you're adding. So I'm gonna just follow the mean pressure here. Okay, this is the mean pressure. So you have this pressure, the mean pressure, and you see that it is around between like around 90. Okay, this mean pressure. Okay, and it's high pressure. Why? Well, because it's the aorta and because it's coming straight out from the heart. Remember, the heart has a lot of pressure, right? So all of this blood, the blood pressure is pretty high in the aorta. Again, it kind of slows down. Kind of slows down in the arteries. It really slows down in the arterioles because you're further away from the heart. And then it drops in the capillaries. And this part is going to be kind of significant in a couple of slides from now on. Okay. And then it slows down. Pressure goes down in the venules, the veins, and the vena cava is pretty much nothing. And this should make sense because again, all the power comes from the heart. So as you know, as blood travels all through your body, when it gets to the veins, there's like no pressure, right? It's like you in the beginning of the semester here, you about right now, okay? About right now, you have like no energy, okay? And so the pressure, just know how to read this line of pressure. And it makes sense, again, makes sense because the veins of the vena cava are further away from the heart. Okay, having said this, I did tell you something about the veins, and I'm going to expand on that right now. And a little bit about the veins is this, because the veins, remember I told you they have a wider lumen. Okay, so they have a wider lumen. Lumen is a space where blood travels. Okay, wider lumen. Okay, blood, and this is, for example, your leg. It's a good example. Because I told you that blood pressure is really low in the veins, we have to keep moving this blood upwards, right? I mean, you have to go from your feet to your heart, right? And not only there's very little pressure, like I show you, also it has to move against the gravity, right? Because gravity pulls you down and blood has to go upwards in this case. So what are some adaptations? Well, one is a valve, okay? Veins have valves, and this is important because I told you I believe in the heart early on in one of my other videos, what does a valve do? It prevents what? Prevents backflow of blood. Okay, so once blood goes up, hopefully these two closes. Okay, another thing too is skeletal muscle. Well, contraction of muscle. As it contracts, that's whenever you breathe or whenever you walk or whatever, it contracts, which in a way it squishes the vein so blood can go upwards. Okay, so those are just a couple of things about veins that are different from arteries. Arteries don't need that. Okay, there's definitely not valves in the veins because the pressure is high enough that it's able to keep pushing the blood. Okay, and there's no need for contractions because it has a lot of smooth muscle. Most of the arteries and the arterioles. Okay, and then finally we talk about this, and this has to do with what I was telling you about the capillary bed, and as pressure travels, how pressure is impact, or remember how pressure goes down from the arterial end. Okay, it goes from the anterior end to the venial end. Blood pressure is going to fall. Okay, it's going to fall drastically, and I will explain this in my next video.